This is a story about a caterpillar. Charlie is a caterpillar who had an ambition in his life, but how can he make it happen? Charlie was a large green caterpillar who lived in the garden of an old house in the south of England. It was a perfect garden for caterpillar, as the owners of the house was an old lady who never sprayed insecticides on the vegetables and wasn't worried if the caterpillars ate a few leaves, as there was more than enough left over for her. On this summer's morning, under a clear blue sky, Charlie the caterpillar sat on a lettuce leaf, chomping away at it quietly and staring into the cloudless sky. Charlie spent most of his time doing this because he was looking for passing aeroplanes, and on this summer's day he was in luck, as a plane flew over the garden every 5 minutes or so. You see, Charlie had a secret ambition. He desperately wanted to be an airline pilot and be able to fly one of the planes that passed so far overhead. Not that he would ever dare tell any of the other caterpillars of his dream. Oh no, he knew only too well that if they would all laugh at him and tease him ever so much if he ever dared mention it, so it remained his big secret. But that never stopped him from watching the planes in the sky, as they flew sky-high overhead, as their wings made cloudy lines behind them, leaving a trail of where they'd been. Charlie often wondered where the planes were going to, and tried to imagine the weird and wonderful places they were going to land. He had been sunbathing on the leaf of a pot plant that had been put outside to get some fresh air and sunshine, and the old lady had taken them both back inside the house. The plant and Charlie had been put on a table in front of an amazing box that made sounds and showed moving pictures. Charlie had hidden in the leaves of the plant and stared at the wonderful box, and it was fate that on that particular night something happened that was to change Charlie's life forever. Because on that night there was a program how airline pilots were being trained. It showed pictures of inside the plane, the controls, and even how to take off and land the plane. Unfortunately for Charlie, it hadn't said how big aeroplanes were, because when they're very high in the sky, they look very small indeed. That never worried Charlie. From that moment he was hooked. He was going to become an airline pilot. Early next day he crept out of the house and back into the garden, but from then on all he could think about was becoming a pilot and flying away in a plane. As the summer days passed by, Charlie got slower, fatter, and As the summer days passed by, Charlie slowly got fatter, and the cabbages and lettuces slowly got thinner, and every day more and more planes flew over the garden, leaving their hazy trails in the sky as they disappeared to faraway places. And far below the planes, sat on his leaf, Charlie watched them go by. His desire to fly one had now become an obsession. He had become totally fed up munching cabbages and lettuces. There's got to be more to life than this, he thought to himself. I can't wait till I'm older and can start to train to become a pilot. Charlie imagined himself in a smart uniform at the controls of a new aeroplane. He could see the gold braid on the arms of his jacket and his smart peaked cap that he would wear. He could imagine himself sitting at the cockpit of the plane as it roared down the runway, destined for exotic places far away. In fact, that Charlie was only a caterpillar and 3 centimetres long never entered his head. He was going to be a pilot, and that was that. The summer days had now drifted into the chilly autumn ones, and the heavy dews now covered the garden, and most mornings showed up all the spiders' webs of tiny droplets of water stuck to them. By now Charlie was a very fat and fully grown caterpillar, and as the temperature started to drop by the day, he knew he had to find somewhere dry and safe to spend the winter. After some searching, Charlie found the garden shed, where he hooked his back feet onto an ivy leaf that had grown through the roof and spun himself a fine cocoon where he could sleep out the winter months in peace and quiet. As the winter gales and rain howled outside, Charlie hung in his own snug little world, dreaming of aeroplanes. At long last the winter months passed by, and the snowdrops and daffodils added colour to the garden as they waved their heads in the spring sunshine. In the shed, the same spring sunshine had woken the sleeping Charlie as he hung in his cocoon. He knew it was time to leave the shed and go back to the garden, so he puffed himself up, and with all his strength he split the cocoon open. But it wasn't Charlie the caterpillar who came out of the shed, it was Charlie the butterfly, who now flew from flower to flower. Charlie thought this was wonderful and far more fun than being a big fat caterpillar as he flew around the garden, and he forgot about wanting to become an airline pilot because he was having so much fun. So unfortunately Charlie never got his dream becoming a pilot because he became a butterfly, and a butterfly flying an aeroplane is a very silly idea. However, he did get his dream of being able to fly, which goes to show that however impossible you think your dreams may be, with a little luck, one day they might just come true. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please remember to give thumbs up and subscribe for future videos.